Hey everybody, this is Ron. Before we get started with our introduction for this video, Jeff Adam over at Motrack Models asked me to point out a couple things concerning this model. The first one is that parts 18 and 18A, which comprise the freight door and the upper round windows, got left out of the instructions. And now that has been corrected. The other thing Jeff wanted to let you know is that in the drawings, the subfloor is drawn upside down. That is incorrect, okay? And that will eventually get corrected as well, okay? So let's get on with today's episode. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ron's Workbench. I'm your host, Ron Piskel, and in this episode, we're going to continue on with our build of Motrack Models Valley hardware and plumbing supply. And Jeff Adam over at Motrack Models wanted me to let you all know that this model is a re-release from the Northeastern Scale Models old line. And Jeff is going to be re-releasing all of their old kits. So you can look forward to those. Now, in this episode, we're going to continue on with our build by painting our model and getting it ready to install the windows and then assembly. So let's get going. Wow, what a rousing introduction that was. Well, this week did not go as I had planned. Couple things. When I shot that introduction, I had just gotten back from my infusion treatments that I get every 6 weeks, so I was pretty much under the weather. That's why I looked like I was about to keel over. The other thing that occurred was the Apple release of software version 13. And that did not go as planned because apparently there was a glitch in between their releasing of 13.1.1 and 13.1.2 that caused the camera not to record. So I actually lost all the video of me painting the walls for this build. But hey, stuff happens. So what you're seeing now is I am trying to feather in some of the white paint that I put on the walls as the base coat. I painted the walls using a sponge and a white acrylic paint. I took the sponge, dipped it into the paint, and then dabbed the majority of the paint off, and then just randomly applied the paint to the walls to give it a random faded paint look. Now, you've seen that technique used by a lot of builders. In fact, if you just go on the YouTube and search, how to paint buildings with a sponge, I'm sure you'll get plenty of other videos showing that technique. But one of the things that you don't often see is how to make that technique truly pop. And to do that, you need to take some very fine sandpaper and run it in one direction over the wood and feather out all the edges of the paint. That's what I'm doing here. And as you can see, this is just starting now to sand all the paint out. And you can see on the large walls that the paint looks very blotchy and large spots. So by taking the sandpaper and running it over the board by board, as you can see what I'm doing here, I actually have my fingernail folded up into the sandpaper, and what I'm doing is I'm going board by board over the paint, and I'm feathering out any of the blotchiness, and this is going to give the building a nice aged look. Now, this is only the beginning of the way I'm going to paint this building. I'm going to be building up different layers of colors to achieve the effect that I'm looking for. I'm looking for an older building that is still in use, but under slight disrepair. Okay, so again, all I'm doing is I'm taking the sandpaper, I'm using my fingernail, and I'm going over each clapboard individually and feathering out all that paint. Okay, so you can see those large blotches of white paint. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking that sandpaper and I am feathering out all those rough edges, and I am just blending it in to make it look as though at one time it had been painted white, and the white paint is now fading, peeling away, and takes a little bit of time. And I'll go over this a few times until I'm satisfied and I achieve the look that I'm going for. A tip while you're doing this technique is to frequently change the sandpaper that you're using, because the sandpaper will begin to clog up with paint. Okay, so here's a good view of the effect. And you can see those large white areas of paint and how I'm beginning and feathering them out across each board. Okay, so I'm just laying the building out to compare each elevation side and trying to make sure that the paint looks consistent across the entire building. Now, I'm not really worried about any of the white paint that is below the level of the first windows and doors, because that area is going to be painted a different color. All right, let's get ready to apply the second layer of paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some blue painter's masking tape, and I'm going to mask off portions of the wall, and we're going to paint that into a different color. So Right here, I'm just trying to line up window elevations so I can apply and get a nice straight line. Okay, so now that I have the painter's tape in place, I'm going to be using Terrestrial Beige by Apple Barrel, and I'm going to apply the paint using a sponge, and this is a natural sponge. So we'll pour a little paint out. I'll dip the sponge in the paint. I'll dab some of it off onto a paper towel, and then I'll begin to paint. Just using an up and down motion. I'm trying not to, I'm not looking for a peeled paint effect here. I'm actually trying to get as much coverage as I can and still leave some little white spaces underneath. And I'll vary this as I go from wall to wall. Again, the overall effect that I'm trying to get is an old building with aging paint. So now it's just a process of repeating it on all the walls. And what I will do is I will match elevations from side to side to make sure that the paint line is consistent across all four walls. And as I finish painting up the rest of this wall, I want to take a moment to thank everyone for watching and all the support you've given this show. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to share it on other forms of social media. If you have any questions or comments, please add them to the comment section down below this video. And until next week, I pray each and every one of you has a blessed and joyful week. Bye for now. On the next Ron's Workbench, we'll continue on with building Motrack Models Valley Hardware and Plumbing Supply on the next Ron's Workbench.